There is a level of discipline so severe it unnerves people, a level the Romans called formidalos ordo, the frightening order. It was the kind of discipline that didn't bend, didn't pause, didn't negotiate, a discipline that made other soldiers whisper, because a man who obeyed this system wasn't driven by motivation or mood, he was driven by something carved deeper than instinct. And today, you're going to learn exactly what that method was and why men who followed it became legends. While modern people celebrate trying your best, the Romans had zero respect for effort and infinite respect for consistency. They believed that if a man could master one thing, the power to act without hesitation, then everything else in his life would fall into place. So they built a doctrine, a ritual, and an oath to kill the version of you that quits by week 3. An internal system that made discipline automatic, unstoppable, and terrifying to everyone who lacked it. This method wasn't philosophical, it wasn't poetic, it was brutally practical. You either submitted to it and transformed, or you broke under it and remained ordinary. Once you understand how Roman centurions forged consistency so absolute it bordered on inhuman, you'll see exactly why your habits collapse, why your routines die, and why you've never reached the level of discipline that actually changes your life. But before we go deeper, follow the Roman tradition of public declaration. In the legions, a man spoke his oath aloud so there was no turning back. Comment below on the single discipline you want to forge. Your words today are your sacramentum, your binding vow. Now, let's enter the Roman system that rebuilt men from the inside out. The man at the center of this story is Lucius Marcellus, and like most modern people, he believed he was disciplined simply because he admired discipline. He had ambition, intelligence, and enough self-awareness to know he was capable of more. Yet his life was a graveyard of abandoned routines, gym memberships wasted, books half read, morning routines that lasted exactly 2 days. Lucius wasn't lazy, he was patterned, and the pattern was always the same: excitement, effort, friction, negotiation, collapse. Every Monday, he promised himself reinvention. Every Wednesday, he renegotiated. Every Friday, he surrendered. The tools he relied on did nothing: habit apps, new planners, motivational videos, and accountability buddies who were just as inconsistent as he was. Lucius lived in a cycle of short-term intensity and long-term failure, and every collapse made him feel smaller, softer, and more ashamed. He knew he wasn't living anywhere near his potential. He just didn't know how to break the loop. His breaking point came the day he read about an obscure Roman doctrine used to turn raw recruits into machines of consistency. It wasn't a motivational trick or a clever productivity hack. It was a psychological restructuring system used in the legions for centuries. It rewired soldiers into men who didn't question themselves, didn't negotiate with discomfort, and didn't delay action. It wasn't willpower. It wasn't discipline in the modern sense. It was identity warfare. Lucius realized something brutal. He wasn't losing because he was weak. He was losing because nothing in his life made failure unacceptable. And the Romans had created a method where breaking your commitment wasn't a setback. It was a betrayal of your oath, your brothers, and your identity. The more he studied the doctrine, the clearer it became. If he wanted to change his life, he had to change the architecture of who he was. And the Romans had already built the blueprint. In the Roman legions, there was a doctrine so severe that generals described it as the blade that cuts the weak from the strong. It was called Disciplina Perpetua, the discipline that continues without interruption. It functioned exactly like the Japanese gyoji from the reference script, but in Roman form. At dawn, when the buccina horns screamed through the camp, every soldier rose instantly. No hesitation, no internal debate, no negotiations. The Romans understood that the moment you allow the mind to decide, it chooses comfort. So they removed the decision entirely. A Roman didn't choose to rise. He rose because his identity demanded it. This was the first pillar of their system: make the act inevitable. To enforce this inevitability, every recruit took the sacramentum, the binding military oath. It wasn't a promise about behavior, it was a transformation of identity. The moment a man declared himself a soldier, in front of his sentry, his failure became shameful, public, and dangerous. Roman culture treated identity as destiny. Break your oath, and you are no longer a man. You are less than the lowest slave. Modern people make private promises. Romans made irreversible declarations. That's why they didn't negotiate with themselves at dawn. Their oath had already been decided for them. History gives us a perfect example in centurion Cassius Scaurus, who once marched his men through a freezing storm because their schedule demanded training that day. When asked why he didn't postpone it, he answered, "If a soldier acts only when conditions are kind, he is no soldier at all." This wasn't cruelty, it was architecture. They were shaping men whose behavior was consistent regardless of weather, mood, or circumstance. Soldiers who followed Disciplina Perpetua didn't act from desire. They acted from identity. And identity is the Roman weapon most modern people lack. That realization hit Lucius with embarrassing clarity. He always kept his goals private so no one would see him fail. Romans did the opposite. They made their intentions visible so failure became unthinkable. Lucius took a page from their book. He wrote on paper, "I am a man who completes my discipline sequence every day at dawn without exception for 90 days. He signed his name. He told his friends. He posted it publicly. People laughed or said he was overreacting. Perfect. Their eyes became the same pressure that the Roman oath created. Now failure wasn't an inconvenience. It was humiliation. For the first time in his life, quitting became more painful than continuing. Lucius expected the public declaration to magically fix everything. It didn't. The first morning his alarm rang, his mind launched the same negotiation it always had. You slept late, you're tired, one skipped morning won't matter. The difference now was the pressure of exposure, people waiting to see if he'd fold. That got him out of bed, but the war wasn't over. His body still resisted. His mind still fought. His old patterns still whispered excuses. Roman doctrine removed negotiation, not discomfort. Lucius still had to endure the biology of change. The Romans solved this by eliminating the second source of negotiation: time. Modern people waste endless energy deciding when to do something. That decision burns precious willpower. Roman soldiers had fixed hours for everything: drills, meals, rest, study, precisely because fixed time kills negotiation. Lucius adopted this rule immediately. He chose dawn, not because it was poetic, but because the world was silent. No texts, no work, no interference. Dawn is the hour when excuses have nowhere to hide. He didn't choose it for comfort. He chose it for purity. The first week was a battlefield. Waking early felt like dragging himself from a grave. His body revolted. His mind screamed. He hated every second of the dawn ritual. But resistance was expected. The body fights violently when routines change because it clings to old patterns. The discomfort didn't mean Lucius was failing. It meant the old identity was losing its grip. In week 2, something shifted. He began waking a few minutes before the alarm, not because he wanted to, but because his brain was adjusting to the new inevitability. Yet a new loophole emerged. Lucius kept the time consistent, but he kept switching the activity. Some mornings he read. Some mornings he exercised. Some mornings, he journaled. Each variation opened a doorway for negotiation. The Roman doctrine had already predicted this problem. If you leave even one variable open, the mind tries to renegotiate. A consistent hour without a consistent action is like a locked gate with the key left in it. Lucius had closed the when but not the what, and that would become his next battle. The Romans had a principle called via una, the one way. It meant that once a discipline sequence was chosen, it never changed. Same actions, same order, same duration. Soldiers are trained in fixed patterns because variation is where weakness enters. Variety forces the mind to make decisions, and decisions drain resolve. Lucius realized he had been sabotaging himself with micro-choices disguised as freedom. So he carved a sequence into stone: 20 push-ups, 10 minutes of Stoic contemplation, 10 minutes of reading, always in that order, always at dawn, no variation. Week 1 of this fixed sequence was brutal. His mind begged for novelty, rationalized changes, suggested better ideas, and tried to convince him he needed freedom. This was expected. The mind will fight hardest when a pattern threatens to become permanent, but week 2 brought subtle surrender. The resistance softened, the sequence felt less like a decision and more like a path he simply walked each morning. By week 4, he started performing the first steps before consciously noticing. The system had begun running itself. This wasn't mystical, it was neurological. Roman soldiers knew, long before neuroscience, that repetition in identical conditions transfers behavior from conscious effort to automatic execution. Today, we know this is the basal ganglia taking over. When you repeat the same action in the same context for enough days, the brain stops debating. It starts obeying. Lucius was feeling that transfer. His actions were becoming instinctual, automatic, unquestioned. This was the beginning of becoming unbreakable. But the real test came in week 5 when illness hit. Stomach pain, fatigue, a pounding headache, the perfect recipe for a skipped day, the very gap that destroys consistency. And that's exactly where the Roman doctrine would show its full power. When illness struck, Lucius faced the moment that had always broken him in the past. The old logic returned instantly. If I can't do the full routine, I should rest completely and restart tomorrow. This is the trap that destroys nearly every modern attempt at discipline. The Romans had a saying for it. A river that stops flowing is no longer a river. It becomes a ditch. Momentum matters more than perfection, and the Romans understood that a single gap in practice invites every old habit to return. So instead of aiming for the perfect sequence, they aimed for continuity. Even when exhausted, soldiers performed the smallest possible version of their drills because the identity of practice had to remain unbroken. A few days later, he faced the next common assassin of consistency: travel. Day 40 put him in an airport at 4 a.m. with meetings stacked from dawn to dusk. Historically, this was where Lucius fell apart. No equipment, no quiet space, no ideal environment. The Romans expected this problem and built their doctrine to withstand it. Soldiers trained in mud, rain, snow, or the cramped belly of a transport wagon. Conditions were irrelevant. Action was mandatory. So Lucius adapted. He did push-ups in an airport restroom while a businessman stared. He meditated in the back of an Uber. He read for 10 minutes on the plane. It was messy, improvised, and uncomfortable. And it worked. Because discipline is not the performance of rituals in ideal conditions. Discipline is the refusal to break identity when conditions go to hell. People around him began noticing changes. Not motivational changes, not productivity changes, something heavier. Co-workers said he seemed colder, more focused, less reactive. Friends joked he was becoming obsessive. One person told him this level of commitment was unhealthy. That was the moment Lucius realized something important. When your consistency reaches Roman levels, normal people will mistake it for madness. They say this because your discipline exposes their lack of discipline. They feel threatened because your improvement shrinks their excuses. The Romans understood this discomfort and considered it a sign of ascension. When others became uneasy around a soldier's rigor, it meant he was rising above the average man. But even with momentum building, Lucius was about to face the one obstacle no routine can predict: life's unpredictable chaos, the surprise disruptions, the emergencies, the sudden demands that shatter plans. And this is where most people break permanently. Not because the obstacle is too large, but because they never prepared an automatic response. The Romans had a countermeasure for this too, and it was one of the most brilliant psychological systems ever invented. Roman commanders understood that the battlefield never goes according to plan. They knew that hesitation under pressure kills soldiers, so they used a technique called preparatio, which meant preparing the response before the problem appeared. When an ambush occurred, soldiers did not debate or improvise. The correct reaction had already been drilled so deeply that it required no thought. This is the same logic used by Zen monks in the reference script, but shaped through Roman warfare. Lucius saw the genius immediately. Every time life throws an unexpected obstacle at you, your unprepared mind chooses the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance always leads back to your old identity. So Lucius wrote down every obstacle that had ever broken him: travel, sickness, late nights, guests staying over, mental fatigue, oversleeping, work emergencies. And for each one, he created a pre-solution. If he oversleeps, he performs the abbreviated routine immediately upon waking. If guests stay over, he performs in the bathroom. If travel disrupts the morning sequence, he does it in micro-sessions throughout the day. If he is hungover, which he should avoid entirely, he reduces the sequence to its smallest version. There was no scenario without a response. When X happens, Y is done. Not considered. Done. The effect was immediate. Lucius stopped wasting energy deciding what to do when things went wrong. Every time an obstacle appeared, his behavior was automatic. No frustration, no negotiation, no guilt. The routine continued because the answers were already written. A Yale behavioral researcher once described this effect. Pre-decisions protect the prefrontal cortex from collapse under stress. The Romans understood this centuries earlier. A soldier who thinks during chaos dies in chaos. A soldier who acts survives. Lucius had finally internalized that principle. As the weeks passed, his girlfriend noticed something strange. He no longer complained about being busy or tired. He no longer talked about motivation. He simply acted. When her mother visited for an entire week, Lucius silently stepped into the bathroom at dawn and executed the sequence without breaking a single day. She asked why he didn't take a break, and his answer was pure Roman logic, because the sequence is non-negotiable. On day 90, Lucius completed his personal training cycle, 90 days of unbroken discipline. But something deeper had shifted. He was no longer practicing discipline. He had become disciplined. When Lucius walked into rooms, people felt something different. A steadiness, a heaviness, an unnerving consistency that made others second-guess their own habits. Roman generals called this presence gravitas, the weight of a person whose identity is carved from discipline rather than convenience. This level of certainty makes ordinary people uncomfortable. They will call you rigid. They will call you extreme. They will say your lifestyle is unrealistic. What they really mean is your existence threatens their comfort. You show them what they could be, and that is painful for the average mind. But Lucius didn't pursue discipline to impress anyone. He pursued it because he had finally understood the Roman truth. Consistency is not something you do. It is something you become. Disciplina Perpetua rewires the self. The public oath destroys negotiation. The fixed hour eliminates decision fatigue. The unchanging sequence kills variety. The no-gap rule builds unstoppable momentum. And the pre-solution system removes uncertainty entirely. When these 5 pillars combine, you stop being someone who struggles with habits. You become someone for whom quitting is impossible. This transformation is not subtle. It is a rebirth. The Romans believed that when a man took the sacramentum, his old identity died on the spot. Lucius finally understood the symbolism. His inconsistent self had been buried weeks ago. The man who now rose at dawn, executed his routine, and never negotiated, was a new creature entirely. A man forged through repetition, pressure, and identity engineering. A man whom others watched with awe or fear. A man who moved with inevitability. If you want this transformation, it is available to you. But it is not gentle. It is not easy. It requires your old self to die. The question is simple. Are you willing to become someone unrecognizable to your past? If so, take your first step. Declare your oath below. Subscribe for the continuation of this Roman path. And tell me the discipline you will forge using Disciplina Perpetua. When others say it looks extreme, remember the Roman answer. Extreme results require an extreme identity.